All right, what is going on YouTube? The third set in the main event of Hidden Cup 4, Harald Hardraade versus Sundjata coming in next. Unfortunately, I missed these when they were casted, not live because all of these are recorded games, but I missed the casting time frames, which will mean that we'll actually be able to get through Dark Ages a little bit faster, just like I did with the series I missed from the qualifiers. Shouldn't really be a difference maker though. We're gonna have Harald Hardrade with Italians, Portuguese, Japanese, Mayans, Magyars, and the Goths. Available other sides, Sundjata will be playing with Chinese, Aztecs, Lithuanians, Malay, Celts, and Huns. Interesting Saracen ban from Sundjata and Vikings ban overall for Harald Hardrade. Home maps look like as follows. Harald Hardrade picking Islands first and picks Bypass. This might be the first time we're going to see Bypass in the main event of Hidden Cup. Bans High Tides. Hideout is the ban for Sundjata. Bay and Mudflow, they are home map for Sundjata. Now we are gonna have to think about who these players could be as well. But I feel like before we go into any conclusions or start speculating about certain players, I feel like it's better to look at games, but I would like to point out the Island's first pick could be an indication to a couple of GA players, potentially could be Winchester. Something I want to talk about is Italians, Portuguese first two picks, banning Vikings. Makes me feel like this player actually wanted to make sure that he's going to have the superiority on water, and he's really counting on that Vikings pick, or that Islands pick to work out for him, and it's also Gots. So just by looking at the drafts, I know we shouldn't draw conclusions, and I will try to refrain from that as much as possible. I feel like this draft, Magyars as a pick, Gods as a civilization pick, I feel like that is very, very Winchester-like. He loves to play with unconventional selections, and we have seen how strong he could be on islands. So that's definitely something that we should consider in this one. I'll be using Capture Age for today's cast as well. This is the brand new version of Capture Age, which actually will have quite a lot of new features as we jump into the first game. Harald Hardraade will be playing in yellow on the left side, and the right side is going to be Sundjata playing as Aztecs in blue. We shouldn't draw conclusions from the colors because they can pick whatever color they want, but I think they have to stick with that color for the entire tournament. So, the fact that it is a yellow color doesn't mean that it's actually Viper by any means. Anyways, we're gonna have two very, very standard civilization picks over here for Arabia. We have a classic Meso War Mayans for Harald on the north, and on the south it's gonna be Sundjata playing in blue Aztecs. So as I said, these are not the official casting times. I'm actually later than that, so I can actually fast forward. I'm just clarifying this so that there is no drama about, hey, all of the casters are casting recorded games and why are you fast forwarding? These have already been casted by other casters. I'm like 3 hours late. That is because I wasn't able to catch them whenever they were casted. I had something else to do. Well, I'm not full-time, so I got some work to do in certain times. So other casters have already casted this, so I am more than happy to be able to fast forward over here. So I will actually be able to show you the rewind function of Capture Age, but I will refrain from using it for now. And we'll probably just use that to go back in time whenever we need to actually take a look at a highlight or so. With that, we're gonna have a standard 4 on wood opening for both sides. Fairly peaceful Dark Age. Neither of the players are actually moving up to do some laming, which is, I think, sort of something that we need to consider, as we are gonna have this house coming in here. That's not another house. I'm looking at this. I actually told this to my viewers on stream, is because I am fairly certain I can identify Dogao's Dark Age build, and that could be something to look for in this specific case. Another interesting thing to talk about, we'll actually take a look at those in one of the upcoming games, is how the players are actually weakening the board with their TC, if they are doing that. The majority of the people do that, but there's a very, very good D90 video about how the players are actually weakening their boards if they do it. We will apparently have a Man-at-Arms play over here from Sundjata, and we will also have a Man-at-Arms coming in here from Harald. Harald right now having an idle time on this Voyager. That was weird for a moment. That Voyager freaked out for a second. We'll have a fairly decent base here for Harald, even though it takes quite a lot of voting to protect this one, and it doesn't really have a lot of safe wood lines, so all 3 of these wood lines could be exposed to archer fire. But other than that, the stone could be relatively safe, and I feel like this overall in general is a reasonable base for Harald. For Sundjata, the gold is not so great, but building 2 archer engines in front should solve the issue without any problems. And I feel like in a Meso War, you almost guaranteed have to play with archers and eagles at the same time. Now, Sundjata went for what is a 20... Well, it's really a 21 pop timing, whereas his opponent actually went for what is a 22 pop timing, because there is actually a Mayan's extra villager in this. So it is a 1 villager later click up for Harald over here, but that means that he's going to be later with the men-at-arms. As you see, there is like a 20 seconds difference that can be associated with the fact that Harald was late into feudal, and there is actually a hole here, and that's actually a massive problem right now for Harald. Tries to wall this one in, and will be successful with that, so that was a nice save from him. Men-at-arms are catching up, and now the eagle is mispositioned, so Harald could definitely take this fight over here, and indeed he does. He just needs to make sure he doesn't lose his eagle, but I think this is an excellent engagement right now for Harald. Indeed cleans up the men-at-arms, and that's overall a nice play from him. We're gonna have a fast blacksmith coming in here for Sundjata to the archers, whereas for now Harald isn't dropping his blacksmith right now. He's a little bit lower on wood. Right side of Sundjata's base has been walled, whereas the left side is still open, so he's a slow waller, so is our yellow player. There are players in this player lineup that love to wall, others not so much. I feel like we can cross out a player like Mbia potentially based on this walling. Mbia would be walled by far by now. Obviously, I'm trying to avoid using stereotypes over here, but I am fairly certain that the walling tendency is definitely something that you can look for the players. Nice walls over here from Harald. One thing that you have to keep in mind when you're talking about Harald, though, is that there is actually a tile of hole over here. I wonder if he has spotted that. That's a tricky hole to spot, but not impossible. And it looks like Sundjata is going to send out a couple of archers right at the beginning, then stops making archers and also not adding any eagles over here. Behind this one, Harald actually went for double bit axe and horse color, so he's definitely one of those people that prioritizes horse color quite early on. Honestly, I'm not sure if I can associate that with any specific player from the player lineup, as that's a nice move over there. Sends in one archer to harass that wood line for a moment. Tries to finish off the walls before the skirms and archers arrive over here, but that might not actually succeed. And the archers could be hitting his wood line once again. Tries to quick wall this one in, but once again that's going to be unsuccessful. And one villager is going to go down from Harald. And behind this one, he doesn't really have his own skirmishers. Doesn't really have an eagle either, so the skirmishers will actually cause a lot of headache. And so far, Sundjata's opening here is just dealing an awful lot of damage. That Mayan extra villager lead now is absolutely gone with that villager picked off, and also a lot of idle time on the wood line, which definitely hurts for a player that is trying to go for archers overall. So behind this one, there's actually fairly steady food income coming in now for Sundjata, and that's going to help him going towards Castle Age. And oh boy, Harald has to evacuate that gold mine already. That is far from ideal, and this is why I said that I feel like in a Meso War you actually make Archer and Eagle, not just simply Archer. That actually, and the fact that, as I said, Sundjata was making Eagles here as well. You see there is a couple of new Eagles on the field as well alongside the Archers. Actually could mean that he's a Red Bull player. Someone who played quite a lot of Red Bull. And the reason why is because I think, based on what we have seen from Red Bull, it was evident that nowadays you don't just play archers in Meso, especially Meso Wars. But even if it's not Meso Wars, just playing Meso Civ, mixing in a couple of Eagles to deal with the opponent's skirmishers is almost a must now. So this is gonna get picked up because there's quite a lot of archers in here, but you always want to go for Archer Eagle whenever you can afford it. Especially with Aztecs that even train the Eagles faster, as you see that by the time this army here on the north actually gets cleaned up, this other side is gonna get pressured, and it actually starts to show in the idle times, I believe. So Harald at 8 minutes, Sundjata at 6. Sundjata's macro so far has been pretty decent, and applied pressure very nicely on the opponent. He didn't kill a lot of villagers, but it's about the idle time and the harassment that he's doing, like idle villager here, idle villager here. There were idols here. You had to quick wall a lot as well for Harald. So if you look at the resources, it starts to be obvious that Sundjata is actually having a much bigger lead going into Castle Age here. +1 defense is already in for his archers. And as I said, there's a couple of eagles on the field from him too. So right now it's just one, but he, I think, lost an eagle some round over here. I definitely think that this has to be a mixture of archers and eagles, mainly to deal with the skirmishers. And you see that now Harald is actually mixing in a couple of eagles himself. I think whoever clicks up to Castle Age first will make an eagle switch, but we might just see the good old-fashioned double eagle war between these two players. That's absolutely possible, as that skirmisher is going to get picked off by the eagle scout. This is exactly why you make eagles. As right now Harald is trying to save that one, but that's going to be a dead eagle over there. For now, he's holding. The problem that he's facing is that he's up against Aztecs, and the Aztec player is actually going to click into Castle Age first. And the thing is that Aztecs, with the faster military units training, they can really overrun you with triple barracks eagles. So, as much as Mayans can go for eagles themselves, Aztecs will do that much better. So, pretty much Mayans are on the back foot against Aztecs when, like, early to mid Castle Age, until Mayans are able to get to decent amount of plumed archers. And it seems like that's the plan for Harald. He's 6 on stone. So we are gonna have a castle in Castle Age from him for plumed archers. You already see scale mail being teched into by a Sundjata, and that means that indeed he's planning to switch into eagles here. A side note worth adding is that the capture age indeed has been changed a little bit. You see that now these buildings actually mean how many buildings does he have from the required 2 to click up to the next stage, whereas these bars, they were here already, but the buildings were changed. Here, they actually tell you how significant percentage a certain player has from the resources required for the next age. You see that the red bar is almost filled in, which means that Harald can click up to Castle Age soon, but he will still be about a minute and a half behind. And Aztecs with triple barracks eagles are extremely dangerous, one of the most banned civilizations. In fact, not just Aztecs, but Mayans were super frequently banned in the qualifiers. Both of these civs were rarely seen because mostly they were banned. I think the top 3 banned plus sniped civilizations were Aztecs, Mayans, and I think Lithuanians or Chinese was the third one, but these meso civs were leading by a massive count. And you see that now Harald is probably going to lose these eagles here to the, or these skirms here to the eagle. Now, he's doing the right thing, I believe. He's going to reinforce these walls, knowing that he won't be able to match up with the mobility of the eagles. So he just wants to make sure that his opponent can just run into his base with the eagles. Now, it looks like there is an opening here. I think that Harald will be able to hold this one because there's only just one eagle. There is 2 more coming, and Sundjata is playing a very aggressive game over here. As he's trying to re-roll this one to try and buy himself some time. Sundjata immediately coming for the siege workshop. That is something that we have to look into though, because there are some players that know that they have the advantage and they would just pretty much try to build on that. So go for the eagles, but maybe even add the TC behind, because if you take a look at Sundjata's eco, especially with Aztec farming, I think Sundjata could definitely afford triple barracks eagles and then potentially a TC back at home. So 2 TCs and triple barracks eagles should be doable here for Sundjata. But instead, he's gonna go for the super aggro play, going for the siege workshop. That is a tendency of a player. We're gonna have the defensive castle coming up here for Harald though. That's not something that Sundjata sees just yet. I think the biggest problem that Sundjata or Harald is going to have is that, yeah, the castle is up, but his gold mine isn't really super secure. He's gonna have a TC over there, but that doesn't mean that he's able to protect it. And against early plumed archers, eagle warriors will still be very decent. And the bigger problem that you're gonna be facing with Harald is production. So you're gonna have 1 castle worth of plumed archer production against what's gonna be mangonels and triple barracks eagles. The production isn't necessarily consistent for Sundjata, but he has a fairly decent eco still. So if you take a look at this, it is Boso, heavy plow even, via barrow, very nice ecos for our blue player as well. He's 1 villager behind, but I think he can add an additional town center pretty soon as well, looking at those resources. He's gonna go for the barracks right now, and he'll probably choose a different angle of attack. There will be plumed archers coming in, so squires will be an essential upgrade for Sundjata right now, because like in general for eagles, squires is an extremely important upgrade, let alone for a civilization or up against Mayan plumed archers that are also kind of fast moving. But still, Plumed Archers will require more micro as well. You have to make sure that you don't eat a mangonel shot with them. Whereas Eagles, you can just pretty much right-click them somewhere and they will do their job. That's a general thing with, you know, archers versus melee units type of a thing. Archers always need babysitting, whereas melee units are a little bit easier to control overall. So it is gonna be a 2TC play here from Harald. He's still fine. I'm not saying he's in a bad position by any means, but look at the amount of food that Sundjata is floating. Holy smokes. This is why I told you that he could afford TC number 2, maybe even TC number 3, and honestly, this might be a fast imp from Sundjata if you think about that. He isn't necessarily super far away from imping here. He doesn't have to keep adding a lot more Eagles because he's got an army that's good enough to harass the opponent. And you see that right now, Harald isn't able to push him at this very moment. So if you are Sundjata, you're actually adding TC number 3, that's a wise move because you have a lot of food that you want to consume, but you're also sending a lot of villagers to gold because, honestly, at this point, you could actually go for an imp. And what do you get with the imp? Especially after this TC, you will be able to drop a forward castle and just start trapping that one down. So an early Imperial Age here with Aztec Eagles and then traps could be very, very devastating. And so far what we are seeing is that I was saying that Winchester could be Harald based on the civilization selections and the map draft. Winchester does have some consistency issues, but I feel like whoever Harald is getting heavily outplayed over here. You see that there is not enough wood for Harald right now to repair that TC. Eagles can always dive in and snipe that mangonel, whereas there is no chance to do that for Sundjata, although you have to make sure you don't lose your mangonel before killing that. That was a little sloppy from our blue player. He lost the other mangonel as well, I believe, to the TC fire, so that was doubly sloppy. But still, there is actually a couple of plumed archers harassing this woodland. That's a nice move over there from Harald. But other than that, there is a second castle coming in. I think the biggest problem that Harald is going to be facing is that Sundjata could be imping soon. It's not going to be a very, very strong eco-aim, but you don't have to have a strong eco-aim. You just need a forward castle to start trapping down the opponent's plumed archer factories, because large amount of plumed archers will actually beat eagles, because eagles have great pierce armor, but every arrow is going to deal 1 damage on them. However, plumed archers, you have a lot of plumed archers on the field. Plumed archer is definitely an archer type, which is like low quality, high numbers type of unit. So a reasonable amount of plumed archers will actually do pretty decently against eagles. You also have to add the fact that they can microwave quite nicely with their extra speed compared to crossbows, let's say. And plumed archers can be threatening to eagles. This is why I think for Sundjata, you probably prioritize going into Imperial here. Or at least, you know, solve this resource floating issue, because that has been a persistent issue over here so far. Eagles, you see that the eagles are actually going down pretty easily to the plumed archers, so that's something that Sundjata has to be careful about. He's got a monastery, and now getting a market up. I believe he wants to buy himself up, which makes a lot of sense. Missing the second building to Imperial, I believe. You see, actually no, he has one. There's a siege workshop. You see the building indicator over here. No castle, but 2 buildings. That's enough. And he can just buy himself up for now. And when that happens, or if that happens, he's probably gonna drop a castle somewhere. I could even see a more like safely positioned castle somewhere around over here, and just crawl up with the +4 defense eagles. Because once you get +4 defense, obviously, those plumed archers won't do much against your own eagles. And another siege workshop comes in here from Sundjata for defensive purposes. Market is up. He is kind of busy not dying right now, so that's why he's not actually fighting this. Nice move from Harald to pick off the villager on the siege workshop, and this is the toughest time in the game for Sundjata. He needs to survive against a lot of plumed archers. Now we have plumed archers here, it's 38 army against only 12. So it seems like Sundjata stopping to produce eagles completely could actually backfire really badly. And do you know what Harald is gonna do? This is the time for Harald to drop a forward castle, because Harald has the resources for that. And it really seems like the numbers aren't satisfactory over here for Sundjata. I think he can still turtle this one out. And there's the forward castle. The imp TC is this one, so that's actually very safe for Sundjata for the time being. That castle, I don't necessarily see Sundjata being able to stop it. But if you're Sundjata, you would actually consider dropping a castle here yourself, because you can actually get that castle up. It's going to be downhills, but that's a nice move from Sundjata. Even just delaying this castle by killing 2 or 3 villagers here matters a lot. And that's exactly what's gonna happen. It's not going to completely stop that castle by any means, but it gives time for Sundjata to react to this one, as I said, and because that castle is right next to a TC, it's going to be nearly impossible for Harald to completely stop that one, especially with the Mangonel, their big Mangonel shot coming in, and another big Mangonel shot. Disaster starts to strike Harald here, and he needs to take a decisive engagement right now. That's why that forward castle was so important, because he needs to decide this game in Castle Age, because in Imperial, he's just gonna be in trouble overall. Right now, it looks like we're even gonna have Atlatl skirmishers coming in here. For Sundjata, I don't think that's the right thing to do, and he needs to start adding Eagles once again. Probably 2 more barracks could also be reasonable, but the most important thing right now for him is +4 defense. Still, those skirmishers will be helpful a little bit, dealing with at least a couple of plumed archers, buy some time. For Sundjata, the Mangonel shots were actually pretty nice, but the plumes do juke them for the time being. Big Mangonel hit once again. And here comes the immediate and inevitable trap. That's exactly what I was referring to. Just go for the trap, because you have to destroy those castles. Once the castles are down, the standard foot archers, crossbowmen, arbalest won't actually do much against the Eagles. Now, there is actually an overchop here from Sundjata that he needs to be careful about. Sends the skirms back. What I think is a mistake right now from Sundjata, though, is that he isn't balancing his eco to get +4 defense right now. He needs to get +4 defense ASAP, because he needs that infantry to start kicking in for him. Also, indeed, the plumed archers are coming in just now. There is still an over... Actually, though, that house is going to save him for now. Voyager count-wise, Harald has actually caught up, and you see that he's also going into Imperial. So, right now, Sundjata has about a 3 minutes window to finish off his opponent here, I believe, because the castles are still standing and plumed archers eventually will work out. If Sundjata is switching into full skirmisher play, then Harald will be the one that goes into his own Eagles, and Eldorado Eagles are actually better than the Aztec Eagles with Garland Wars. So that from this point on, the quality of the Eagles will actually be favoring the Mayan player over here. Also nice moves from Harald, picking off quite a lot of Voyagers over here inside the base of Sundjata, but now all of those plumed archers will be cleaned up by the skirmishers, and that's going to hurt quite a bit for Harald, because he needs his numbers to be on the front line. Third trap already out, still missing +4 defense though for those Eagles. That's a crucial mistake, I believe, for Sundjata, because the +4 defense would actually help making sure that those plumed archers will never be able to kill the Eagles. It looks like we're just gonna have a full Atlatl skirm play. Right now there is no Atlatl for them. They do have Bracer, but no chemistry. And you see that the infantry upgrades are already coming in for Harald, so he's thinking about switching into Eagles. First castle is about to go down over here, as still, what I'm actually shocked about is that we're not seeing any more Eagles from Sundjata. That's actually a misplay. That's actually a big misplay. I mean, he's up against full plumes, but you can't underestimate the opponent's chance to switch into Eagles as well. And yeah, he could just be mixing in his own Eagles still, but he's not doing that. The other surprising thing is that if he wants to go pure skirm, why is he not getting +4 defense, or why is he not getting Atlatl, why is he not getting chemistry? So I feel like maybe Sundjata was waiting a little bit to see what his opponent is up to. Now he's going for plate mail, so he's gonna go back to Eagles, but in that case he needs more barracks, which is something that is coming in just now for him. First castle's down, and this is exactly what he needs to do. He needs to go for Eagles and then trap down the castles. Now that his opponent is up to Imperial though, Harald can also go for Eagles. You see that the Eagle Warrior upgrade is coming in. Still, there's a time frame for Sundjata to finish off his opponent here, because it's going to take quite a lot of time until the actual upgrades kick in for Harald. And if you can destroy the castles before Eldorado would come in, then the Aztec Eagles will still be dominating the Mayan Eagles. In fact, if you're Harald right now, you actually have to consider using this castle for Eldorado. If you want to switch into Eagles, you have to get Eldorado with Mayans. Quite a lot of skirms on the field, as we'll have another castle probably on this hill by Sundjata to secure that gold mine, and this one as well. That's a very nice castle position. Another castle goes down, and you see that there is Eagles back on the field, still missing elite, still missing attack upgrades, so a lot of upgrades are still missing as well for Sundjata. But he's got the traps here to start killing buildings. He needs to be careful because those traps are dangerously exposed to the Eagles of the opponent. But if it's Eagles from the Mayan player, it's going to be still a little bit problematic because, as I said, especially with no Eldorado, the Aztec Eagles will be way better. as indeed now Harald will try to commit to sniping down those trebs. Sundjata will react just now, but that castle is gonna go down, and there is still no Eldorado for those Eagles, which is extremely important. Without Eldorado, the Eagles from the Aztecs with Garland Wars will just clap Mayan Eagles really easily, but as I said, it's a little sloppy from Sundjata to leave those trebs exposed like that. He didn't actually expect Eagles from his opponent sniping down his trebs, and he will lose 3 trebs, but it doesn't really matter because Sundjata indeed is winning game number 1 over here. What did we learn? I feel like what we learned is that both of these players are good, but neither of them are super amazing, so I would be hesitant to say if either of these players are a top 5 player right now. I don't think it's players like Viper or Hera or Leary, because we haven't seen crystal clear execution from either of these players. So they seem to be more like the lower top 10 category, but both of them. This seems to be a fairly balanced matchup, even though Sundjata was dominating this one quite a bit. But if you remember the Eagle or the Plumes push, that actually was fairly useful from Harald, and had he not eaten some big mangonel shots over here, this could have been a different scenario. With that, we are gonna have game number 2 coming in here, but before that, we will take a look at the draft. So Aztecs are gone for Sundjata, and Mayans are gone for Harald, which means we're either going to Islands, fittingly Harald Hardraade, Vikings warrior, is having Islands as one of his home maps, or Bypass. I would love to see Bypass, because that's my favorite map among the new ones, so we will be jumping in there, and it is Islands, and I feel like this civilization selection is going to tell us a lot about the players. We have Celts for Sundjata. Now, notice, as I said at the draft, I'm just going to switch back here for a moment because it's Islands, that Harald actually banned Vikings, picked Italians, picked Portuguese, picked Japanese even. Now, Sundjata had Malay, and many would have probably expected Malay to be the pick here, but Celts is a reasonable decision. Overall, we have seen Celtic landings on this. I think it was Lix doing a landing like that. So we will see who Sundjata is, but if we are actually seeing a landing attempt here with Celts, I'm tempted to say it's going to be sort of a clue towards Vivi, because not a lot of players would actually go for pure landings on islands. Most of the players, like, speaking of players like potentially Nikov or ACCM, they would try playing islands with water combat. No problem. So, just to make sure, I will let you know this. There could be spoilers in terms of the qualifiers here. So in case you still want to watch a series from the qualifiers and don't want to get spoiled on who qualified, close your ears for a moment. But here are the 16 players that are in the main event. Daut MBL, Dogao Yo, Hera Tato, Leary Viper are the invited ones. ACCM Nikov, Bakti Vilas, Bars Winchester, and Jordan Vivi are the ones that were not invited but qualified. We have a pause here. If we see more of that, it is a bit of a clue towards Bakti, because Bakti pauses a lot. And based on the quality that we have seen from Harald, Bakti's gameplay is actually definitely possible over here. We do have a bit of a lag spike over here. Hopefully that's not going to be a big issue. The thing is that this brand new Capture Age version was released like 2 hours ago, so we don't know if there is any new glitches, bugs whatsoever involved in it. Looks like we'll have both players pushing in there over here. And you can never count out any player just yet, but this map is not actually suitable for me to determine if it's Dogao or not. I have said this many times during Hidden Cups. If there is one player I can always identify, that is Dogao. But as I said, the Celts pick, it's not something that I would expect from a player like Dogao, or a player like probably Hera either. Probably not even Leary or Viper. Definitely not from Tato. He's actually luring in the board with the Scout. That's not something that a lot of people do. And we also have the TC weakening the board. So that's something that you should always pay attention for. Some players do not like to weaken the board with the TC, some players do. I think that the majority of the players, according to T90's video, actually like weakening the boar, but or with the TC, but some of them do not. So, for example, Doubt, I think, said that he doesn't really like to weaken the board with the TC. So that's already sort of a clue that Harald is unlikely to beat Doubt. This used to be a trick that only Chinese and Vietnamese players used back in the Wubi days, but nowadays many other players have actually learned it, and you see villagers jumping inside. T90 also has discussed that there is multiple ways of doing this, so you can jump into a TC with 6 villagers, 5 villagers, 4 villagers. This was the more classical 6 villager into a TC, and then 1 volley with the villagers working out. This was actually a little bit early board here from Sundjata, but not really a big deal at the end of the day. And we have a backdock play. A backdock is definitely a possibility for a landing, and as I said, there is many players that could potentially try landing. Any of them basically could be trying to surprise the opponent. I think the main reason why I don't think it's going to be that surprising though is because it's Celts. I think at this stage you're expecting Celts to be a landing civilization for you. Celts definitely not a great post-Imperial island civilization, because the thing is that they don't have Bracer, so obviously they will just be bad when it comes to galleon combat. Any civilization that doesn't have Bracer is a bad island civilization, or well, not necessarily bad, but bad in late game. So let's see if we're going to see a landing from Sundjata. Harald is actually playing standard galley rush opening front dock, nothing really special, and he's expecting a landing. He's definitely expecting a landing, walling himself off over here, and we will have some additional fishing ships being added by Sundjata for now. Also delays the landing. Interesting. Now, I don't think that Vivi has actually landed in the qualifiers that he has played, although I don't remember the sets. There were so many that I completely forgot who did what. But I know that Lix did Celtic landings in the qualifiers, I believe. And so we are going to have what is a 29 eco click up. That's actually pretty late for a few late landings, so I wonder if there's any trickeration in this. Because this feels like a very, very late landing from Sundjata, if it is actually landing, but it also is very late for any kind of naval engagement. So, another fishing ship is being added, and honestly, yeah, there's a mill. This could end up being a fast castle, though I feel like this mill is a little late for an FC. But one of the things I want to point out is that in 2v2 World Cup, Mr. U and Lix played islands in a way that in the Grand Finals, Lix actually went for, I think it was the Grand Finals, Lix actually went for a landing with a fast castle play. And he landed with knights from Teutons, so he also got the benefit from conversion resistance, and he's also landing with much stronger units. And oftentimes, a fast castle landing could work out much nicer, and you see that this really feels like a FC landing here. There is already a transport ship queued up, so indeed we are seeing a landing here. But with the resources that Sundjata is having, I am leaning towards thinking that it's gonna be a landing with a fast castle play. It's actually a risky play, but it makes quite a lot of sense. And you see that Harald probably knows that it's a landing, because otherwise you wouldn't be making galleys from a front dock. But galley scale fishing ships faster are like this. If you know it's a landing, and you probably know it based on the uptime, because there is two things that you can do here. You either do a landing with fast castle, or you do a fast castle like fire ship play, but why would you do Celts with that? Right? So I think from Celts at this stage you're expecting a landing, and that is indeed the case. Market Blacksmith up, which means that what we're probably gonna see is a Hoang rush. So that barracks is up, but there was no military building built at home. If it wanted to be a crossbowman landing, and then later on a siege workshop on the other side, it would be archer range. The only way that you make Market Blacksmith is if you are trying to go for a knight's landing. Here comes the transport, but guess what? Harald actually spots it. This could be a literal Titanic from Sundjata. Very, very nice macro from Harald. He's blocking the transport. He knows that the transport will just outrun him pretty easily. Transport at half HP. I think that the units will be able to jump outside of the transport, but the transport is still very, very far away from the opponents. And this is one of the reasons why it is often not recommended to do backdock with the landing. It's an interesting decision. Back in the days, it was always discussed that you want to do front dock with the landing, because you have to take the shortest path to the opponent's island, as you won't have your ships to escort the opponent, escort your transport. But on the other hand, a backdock actually secures more fishing for you. We will have no fletching on those galleys right now, and you see that at the end of the day, even though the fast castle works out nicely for Sundjata, considering that Harald's fishing eco wasn't pushed at all and he didn't have to invest into ships himself either, he's going to click up with like what is a 1.5 minute disadvantage, but not something that's impossible to overcome. So at this point, I am starting to feel more and more that Sundjata could be VV, and the reason why is because if you remember the first game, like this Celtic landing is not something that a player like Dogao or Nikov would probably do. And the first game, I actually pointed out how aggressive Sundjata was with his attempt. Like, he reached Castle Age and he immediately went for a forward siege workshop. And when I'm talking about super aggressive players, I'm talking about players like Vivi, for example. We'll have another transport coming in here, and it's going to be the short path to travel. And Harald doesn't have a lot of ships working for him, which means that these early fire ships will just be able to destroy his entire fleet, and soon Harald might be the one forced to run. He's not far away from Castle Age either, but that 30 seconds is a very, very long time when your fishing eco is getting pushed by fire ships, and fire ships kill fishing ships very, very fast compared to fire galleys, which means that you really have to just run with your fish. I think it's actually sloppy from Harald that he isn't doing it. Oh man, that feels so off from Harald. And I know many players in this situation would have hidden their fishing ships in the corner. So, for example, a player like Nikov would have probably ran for a corner immediately upon seeing his opponent being in Castle Age and pushing that fishing eco. There is no War Galley upgrade just yet from Harald, but he's gonna have the fire ships now to take one of the opponent's ships down. But the transport is already out, and you see there is a stable. There is definitely a stable being constructed. Interesting is the reaction as well from Harald. He's actually going for his own stable instead of a monastery. And you would assume that you go for a monastery here because you want to convert the knights. Now it's going to be spearmen though. That's a nice reaction. One of the ways that you can react to this fast castle knights play is that you immediately start making spearmen, knowing that your opponent will go for knights, and you pull the spearmen and you try to wall this one in as much as possible. Still no War Galley upgrade for Harald, but he's got the numbers advantage, first knight out on the field, but no upgrades whatsoever. This scout could also get poked down by the spearmen, and it looks like this stable is going to be walled in nice and easy. That knight isn't really going to do much, and this defense has been pretty nice from Harald overall. There is going to be some damage done, but at the end of the day, no Voyager was killed. The stable gets walled in, and now, even though Scorpion is out, there is also a knight coming in from Harald, so you could actually clean this one up. There is going to be scouts trying to pick off the spearman, but another spearman comes in, and the Voyagers will actually try to focus down the Scorpion. The monastery is also up, but I think Harald, if that DC goes up, this aggression will probably be completely crippled. Now a knight is out, and there is a monk coming in, but that's like at a very, very early stage. 4 Voyagers will be killed. Very nice defense from Harald. He was expecting this landing, and he's reacted quite nicely to that. Now, his fishing eco is still alive here on the front, which is extremely important at the end of the day, and I also like how he's using his fire ships to destroy this siege workshop. So, whoever Harald is, he's a smart player, that's for sure. So, the first game was a little sloppy from him, but I don't think that he was outclassed by that much. It was a matter of, I think he had a bit of a civ disadvantage, to be honest. He's gonna have to take this fight though, because otherwise he's gonna lose his fishing eco. He's still behind by 2 Voyagers, but he managed to clean up Sundjata's food eco on the water. But Sundjata also has fishing ships on the front, something that Harald doesn't know about right now. I think the monk has been either cancelled or killed immediately, doesn't really matter, because this monastery is not going to do anything here. And overall, now we're talking about Celts versus Italians on islands, and obviously that favors Italians by an enormous margin. Post-Imperial Celts is just not a thing here on islands, so I'm not sure what Sundjata will be able to do right now, but from this point on, I feel like this should be a game that's massively in the favor of Harald. He's got 15 ships against 4, and Harald being very, very dominant over here in this one. A demo could actually sink a lot of fishing ships, although you don't want to waste your demo on this. You don't have to kill the fishing ships with a demo, that's the thing. it's better to indeed just finish off those fire ships. And now you can just send in your own fire ships to deal with the opponent's fish. And this war galley is also denying the fish being added at the back. Sundjata will be playing on 2 TCs, actually 3 TCs. Harald will only be playing on 2. So the next question is who's going to start adding food eco in massive quantities. Eco-wise, Harald doesn't have horse color right now. I would love to see that horse color before mass adding farms. But the next stage of Islands combat is always being able to just add the food eco to actually go into Imperial. That's the very, very important part of this one. As we are gonna have the fire ships trying to take down the docks. Nice reaction over there from Sundjata with the demo, but Harald splits away just in time to prevent that demo from dealing a lot of damage. And I also like how Sundjata is actually leaving one fire ship to clean this one up. It's not like that stable is going to do any immediate damage, but you always want to avoid having your opponent have any ships on your own island. And it seems like we're actually going to have a counter landing over here by Harald. I don't know where the transport is coming from. That's where the transport is being built at. Beautiful demo hit over there from Sundjata. And if I actually wanted to showcase, I'm just going to do this to showcase the brand new feature of Capture Age. We could just go back. Let's do this, okay? Back in time we go, and we'll be able to rewind this highlight. So you see there is going to be a demo coming in here, and it's going to sink. I think it actually sunk 3 ships. It was just 2. I thought it was more, but there is probably going to be another demo coming in here in a matter of moments. So this is the new time control features of Capture Age. It's I'm not really doing a sellout for them here, but Capture Age is a software. I think that was the demo that we saw. So Capture Age as a software was free, but this is a pro feature, which means that this is only available. Did I completely mess this up? Because I am fairly certain that I've seen that demo hit before, so I might have actually went back too much in time. Indeed I did. Apologies. This is the first time I'm using that feature, so apparently I went back too much in time. There is going to be another demo that's going to sink a couple of ships. I think this is going to be the blast that we're looking for. Indeed, that's the blast that I wanted to show you in the highlights. So, demo ship pops out, sinks free. So, Capture Age was a free software for anyone to use, but this feature, I think the time controls, is a pro feature. It's not something super expensive. I think it's €5 a month, but this requires a paid subscription, and it's mainly intended for casters and potentially players trying to rewatch their games. And apparently this time control actually makes the game paused once we get back to live feed. So, not ideal, but it works out well. So, at this stage, we have an 8 Vultures lead for Sundjata, resulting from the 3 TCs that he's having. He also picked up 1 relic back at home, and probably working towards the second one. But, as I said, there is going to be a transport coming in for Harald. It might be just for the relic in the middle, for like a more standard play, or he could actually try to land the opponent as well. And it seems like he's just going to send his knights to the opponent's island. That's a decent idea. I mean, he's got some leftover knights, why not send them to the opponent? As he's still dominating water, he could start switching into war galleys, because eventually the opponent's fire ships, like... The thing is that fire ships are a little bit more dangerous in this stage for Harald, because he knows that in Imperial, the Celtic War Galley or Celtic Galleon play is just not legit at all. So he wants to turn this into a Galleon war, and because of that he probably wants to start switching into Galleons, War Galleys himself. The demo didn't really have a great connection, but still helps out winning this fight with the help of the Repair Vulture. But now this landing catches Sundjata off guard. Luckily for him, he's got 3 TCs. Protecting all key resources, so both gold mines are covered, there is a woodland that's safe as well, so there isn't really much that these knights can do right now, and there was no vulture accompanying them, so that landing isn't going to be super devastating. And the thing is that if you take a look at Sundjata's resources, these are actually looking better to Imp. As I said, one of the key things in Islands games is how and when you add food eco in Castle Age. And you see that Sundjata actually added a lot more, even though he was consuming a lot more food as well with 3 TCs. But his resources are looking much better when it comes to imping. We're gonna have one monk to pick up a relic from this island, and I assume that the other monk was meant to pick up the island or the relic from the opponent's island, but that didn't really occur. There's already 2 relics for Sundjata, so it's still going to be free too. And as I said, in Imperial I still favor Italians over Celts, but it seems like we're gonna have the Celtic player ready to click up a lot faster, especially now that there's a free TC play over here from Harald. He's also heavy on stone, so I assume that he just wants to play standard water from now on, and a monk will come in here to the middle. I don't exactly know why, but it might be for conversions, honestly. You might actually try converting the fire ships of the opponent here, or maybe even demos. That would be a nice one. Indeed, that's the plan here for Harald, but that is actually a very, very bad plan. Feels bad man for that monk, as that's just gonna get killed. Imp coming in right now for Sundjata. He was floating an awful lot of gold. In fact, he still does. His opponent, if he balances out his eco, he should have no trouble clicking into Imperial himself. I don't even know if Celts have fast fires. I'll have to check the tech tree for that. So I think that's the best bet that Celts could have here. If they don't have fast fires, I don't know what they're gonna do in Imperial. So let's see. They don't have fast fires. In fact, yeah, this is what I was talking about. Imperial Celts are just so potato. If you had the fast fire, you could actually imp into fast fire ship, but what are you gonna do? You can imp into Galleon without Bracer. Congrats, that's not going to do anything against even Castle Age fire ships. So I feel like, yeah, there is actually about a minute advantage for Sundjata into Imperial, but his fleet is going to be an absolute junk, and this is why I don't necessarily like Celts on islands. It feels like a one-trick pony save that's great for landing, pretty potato for anything else. And this is why I always admired, like in the qualifiers, as there's a sneaky castle here by Harald, and a barracks as well. I think this might be spotted by Sundjata though, but this barracks is for condottieri. One of the reasons why Italians is very good on islands is because you can land with condottieri immediately, and that helps an awful lot. Even just a couple of condos running around can be pretty annoying, and this castle would also be pretty tough to clean up. So really, what does Sundjata go with his Imperial Age? I have absolutely no idea, because he's got no water. And this is why I always love to see players actually saying, okay, I'm going to pick Portuguese and still land. If you really want a landing, you pick a civilization that's not so predictable with landing. I mean, Celts isn't guaranteed to be a landing, but against Italians it kind of has to be. Otherwise, as I said, if this goes into Imperial, Celts have no chance on water against Italians. Here is another barracks, so it's gonna be condottieri from Harald, and the cast is also gonna go up. I would think that he needs to wait here a little bit. He doesn't have to rush anything, as we're gonna have heavy demos from Sundjata, but this is exactly why I said that I feel like you just go for galleons here with Harald, as let's see if he's actually able to get a good demo hit in here. Actually gets a reasonable connection for the time being. So ecos are fairly close, but this is the problem that Sundjata is going to be facing. He's up to Imperial, congrats, but as I said, he's still going to have Castle Age fire ships that will still die to demos. Now those heavy demos could be pretty devastating, but you can just use your own demo to try and pick them off, and at the end it's an even trade of fleets, but you shouldn't underestimate the fact that there is already a landing from Harald, something that Sundjata wasn't able to see. His demo was very, very close, but Sundjata still doesn't see this, and fast fire. That's an awful decision. That's an awful decision from Harald. He's going for fast fires against heavy demos. That's not something that you should do. I mean, I understand he's having problems massing ships, and he wants to make sure that he's able to field a navy, and he isn't confident he can actually get a lot of galleons on the field, but right now fast fires will just help his opponent here, because heavy demos will just be laughing at that. So I feel like Harald will need to play galleons here. Fast fires won't work out, because the only thing that a Celtic player can react to is fast fires, because they have heavy demos, and as much as Sundjata is unaware of the landing on his island, Harald is also unaware of this one. He's missing this out by a single tile. He's gonna have defensive castle here though, which helps quite a bit, as it seems like this wants to be a hub and siege push, and this castle will actually reveal this landing. This is huge. If these barracks weren't built, this would have been hidden from Harald, but now he sees it. He could actually react to this one really fast if he makes a knight or so to try and pick off a couple of voyages. There's already pikemen coming in. But I feel like this landing is going to be a lot more devastating. There is already condos in, trebs in to take down the TCs, and you see that by the time this actually starts becoming a thing, this I think might already stall out, and there's going to be probably just condos defending over here as well for Harald, and he's going to have a defensive castle, which is what matters the most, I believe, whereas his opponent is just scrambling to rush up a defensive castle. Still fast fires versus normal fire ships, but there is heavy demos mixed in for Sundjata, so this still is a little bit tricky for Harald on the water, but if he's given time to get to Galleon, he's gonna be fine. Actually, it's a very consistent trap production. I like that he didn't stop at one trap. He actually keeps pressing on and goes for multiple traps, try and destroy buildings as fast as possible. Might actually even try to take down this blacksmith so that his opponent isn't able to go for the upgrades on the units. It looks like we're gonna have pikemen, but you see that these pikemen have +1 defense. This is why taking on the blacksmith would help quite a bit. A tower comes in here from Sundjata. This is a tower that isn't really going to inflict much of a damage, to be honest, and Sundjata is just trying to mine as much stone as he can to defend his base with another defensive castle, but this castle is gonna go down very soon. After that, the condos will dive in, and I feel like the landing from Harald is doing a lot more damage than the landing from Sundjata will, and Harald will be evening out the series over here, seemingly, because now the TCs are just melting, the farming eco is gone. As I said, this blacksmith might actually go down as well, and look at that. Sundjata was trying to repair that trap with everything he had, but that didn't work out. Harald reacts quite nicely, and as I said, I don't really have a clue on who these players could be, but the more I'm seeing Sundjata, the more I have some VV vibes for him. So, Celts are gone, and Harald loses Italians, which raises the question of where you're going to use Portuguese, if you use it at all. Harald, after winning islands, we're either going to Bay or Mudflow to Sundjata's home maps. So let's take a look at what is gonna be game number 3 over here, which is a Mudflow with a Chinese versus Japanese matchup over here. Now, Sundjata picking Mudflow, I was actually referring to this one in one of the sets I casted previously. I feel like this is a map that most of the standard players do not like. This Boglands is not something that I think many players will like, and some of the players that would like it is Chinese and Vietnamese players, because they like to play this mangrove shallows a lot more than others. In fact, some of the strongest players in the Mangrove Shallows Cup in 2019, which featured maps that were full of these amphibious terrain, was from China. Chinese community had a lot of players in there. So that could also be a clue towards Sundjata having Mudflow as his first home map. This is definitely everything but a standard map, as we're gonna have Harald in yellow Japanese. Japanese make quite a lot of sense here with potentially a cheaper lumber camp, so that you can either go for like land. You see that he's already dropping a lumber camp here, so it might just be that you don't go for the middle. Although I'm not 100% convinced they're Japanese here, to be honest. Like, there is double berry patches, there is small wood lines, there's a lot to love about Japanese here, but I feel like the true go-to civilization for this map is Khmer. The reason why Khmer is so good is because you can't build farms around your TC because of these shallows, so you have to build them on the outside, and that actually gives you an advantage. We have seen this in Red Bull a lot of times, and the fact that we have Harald picking Japanese over here makes me wonder if he actually played in Red Bull, because I think whoever played in Red Bull and played that map, I don't remember the name of the map, but I think that if it was a Red Bull player, he would have known that Khmer can be very helpful on a map with such a start. So, with that, we are gonna have a woodland here on the outside for Harald, 4 on wood for him, and you see that this build order, house, next Voyager lures in the first elephant. This is not a build order that a player like Dogao would use. Same thing over here as well, although this player is getting housed over here quite heavily with Chinese. I feel like neither of these players is Dogao. I will say this a lot of times in the in this event. Both players are using the TC to weaken the elephant, which is also sort of a clue. Dogao would never use, like, I think Dogao and Doubt are players that are not using the TC to weaken the board, so I think that we can actually cross these two players out. The rest of the players, the majority of them are actually using this. Still, I have some VV vibes for Sundjata. Right now, we will have what is essentially a premium rush over here for Harald. And one player that loves his premium rushes is actually Bars, although Bars isn't using TC weakening either. This is 6 Vultures into TC working out. So, in fact, the player that loves premium rushes the most is definitely Bars, although it seems like it's only going to be 2 militias for now. I wonder if we're going to see the Voyager moving out to the gold, or we'll just see 2 militia rush. Because it could very well be just a 2 militia rush here, because I don't see any Voyager walking out to the gold mine, or another militia being queued up. Interesting decision, because you could really justify a free militia rush, and you could see that Harald was able to scout Sundjata moving out to the middle, and because of this, he knows exactly that his opponent is out there. Very, very nice unit control blocking that Voyager. That's definitely top tier unit control for a yellow player, and I'm a little bit torn on who this player could be, because the first game was a little bit weaker, especially the beginning. I have some... could be Nikov, to be honest. Like, I have some Nikov feelings for yellow player over here, because it's not something that's very, very special, but when he is not under pressure, he's actually putting on a decent gameplay, and it kind of fits Nikov quite heavily. For blue right now, I have some serious VV vibes the more I'm looking at it. Anyways, we are gonna have much better fuel age timing over here for Sundjata, which raises the question if Harald actually wants to FC this, but the answer is no. This seems like a standard Man-at-Arms, well, not really Man-at-Arms build. This feels like a fast rush into Archer's play. I was thinking about Man-at-Arms because this would normally be a Man-at-Arms-ish timing, but with the Shorefish that you will actually be able to take beneath your TC, I feel like this is more about the Drush Archers. It's like a 2 militia Drush into Archers, whereas for Sundjata it's a 20 pop build. Feels like it's just going to be standard scouts. Interesting is the fact that he's picking Chinese here, although it's not unprecedented. If you think about the fact that Chinese don't have to build a house right at the beginning, they can actually delay that one a little bit. And the fact that you started more Vultures with Chinese, and you can go to the Shorefish or the Deep Fish immediately. Chinese is a very, very good civilization. Back when El Dorado was a tournament map, and El Dorado had such a start, El Dorado, I mean the map, not the technology that is there for Mayans, as this dock could actually be denied here by a Feudal Age Scout. That's a bad move from Harald. Now there's a militia coming in to support, but I didn't really like that move overall from Harald, that he just let that scout open that wall. So Chinese was one of the top civilization picks for El Dorado as a map back in the days, basically because of this one. So the fish beneath the TC actually helps quite a lot. On this one, it looks like we're actually gonna have 2 more militias being added here, and I think Harald starts to realize, hey, I'm up against scouts, I might as well go for a Man-at-Arms play here. And indeed, here comes the Man-at-Arms play. Might even see, I think it's gonna be Man-at-Arms galleys. And the surprising thing here is that I feel like if Sundjata was VV, he would have gone for water. I feel like Mudflow is definitely interesting from this perspective, and I wonder if you're actually seeing a player playing on Mudflow that just feels like this is simply an open map. Because it could be classified as just a very, very open map that's always raidable, and players that just likes to play Scout Wars could be involved in this. There's a galley coming out, there's a Japanese spearman as well, so I don't think there's more than 1 Voyager dying over here. 1 Voyager was killed by both players so far, but the Man-at-Arms are actually knocking on the walls, and more importantly, Sundjata was forced to make a defensive tower because of the galley coming in here. That defensive tower is going to scare that galley away for the time being. And one of the other reasons why I think Khmer is actually a very, very good civilization for this map is because you can jump into houses here, and it seems like Sundjata is just absolutely tearing apart his opponent with the mobility of the scouts. It's so hard to say. I think that, honestly, it might still be Vivi. But I'm actually a little bit lost on these players right now. They both are playing fairly standard. Harald actually is playing the map, I think that the way that it was meant to be played, but it seems more like he is just gonna get absolutely eaten by scouts. Another Voyager goes down, and he's behind by 5 now, make it 6. Voyagers dying left and right, and oh my goodness. I feel like if it wasn't for a Celtic landing, I would have said that this is a player like Hera, because this scout control is actually amazing, but I don't think that Hera would ever do a Celtic landing. It could be MBL, but honestly, yeah, it could be MBL, although I feel like he didn't wall fast enough on Arabia to justify an MBL decision over here, but the scout control has been extremely good from Sundjata over here, and he has been just absolutely shredding his opponent with that. Meanwhile, these Metarms aren't really able to do much, and it's an 8 Voyagers lead right now for Sundjata, and it looks like we're actually gonna have the neutral berries contested as well by Harald. That's actually dangerous, because if those scouts actually find those Voyagers, they could kill quite a lot. Another Voyager will bite the dust here, and this is spiraling out of control right now for Harald. He has been outclassed a little bit on Arabia, as now we're gonna have archers coming in here as well. The archers will not be as good as the galleys here, though. This is why I'm a little bit... I don't really like this map overall, to be honest, because I feel like the galleys in such a combat here in the middle, they just carry so much power compared to archers. And that's one of the main criticism towards this amphibious terrain in general, that the ships are just much stronger than standard field age units. So with that, there is a tower up for Harald. He also builds 2 houses here, partially to wall this in and make sure Voyagers don't actually kill it, but also to draw away the fire from the opponent's tower. This means that Sundjata is forced to relocate his lumber camp, but keep in mind that, I mean, there is still scouts running around for Sundjata, but more important, there is archers coming in, and those archers are mainly meant to kill spearmen. They're not actually meant to be the main damage dealing unit, they're meant to support these scouts right now. And 2 more Voyagers could die here, 3 more over here. We already have a 10 Voyagers lead for Sundjata. Whereas for Harald, Harald lost, or well, Harald actually killed 1 Voyager at the beginning with the Drush. That was actually very nice, but other than that, he didn't really have anything going for him in this game. And you see that's already a lot of idle time, and the archers will just focus down the spearmen. And a lot of resources will be denied here. And sure, you could actually bring in your own archers, but it's archers and scouts versus only archers. So the advantage should be on the side of Sundjata over there. And the thing is that Sundjata doesn't have to stomp his opponent anymore. He just needs to make sure that he's constantly applying pressure. And if he's successful with that, he's just gonna be able to outboom his opponent, because that is still a 9 Voyagers lead. Men-at-Arms now trying to camp beneath the tower, though. This is actually a bit of a sloppiness from Sundjata, that he overchopped that wood line, because now the Men-at-Arms will be able to attack the bottom of the tower, and also the galleys are able to camp beneath it, and this could be the way back into the game for Harald, because that's going to be a lot of idle time. Surprisingly, no Voyager was killed in this one, which is absolutely amazing. And the Man-at-Arms goes down, which is what matters right now for Sundjata. He also lost the majority of his scouts here, and the last 2 minutes or so was an absolute disaster for Sundjata, if you ask me, as Harald is taking over in here. And as I said, galleys are too strong compared to feudal age units. And this is why I was very confused with this map being involved in the map pool. I just feel like Boglands as a thing works out, but it needs extreme attention when it comes to balancing and map design, and I just don't know how this actually fits to the narrative of Hidden Cup. So there is still a 7 Voyagers lead for Sundjata, but if you actually consider the fact that Harald is actually with more Voyagers on food, that could mean that Harald is actually gonna get to Castage a little faster than his opponent will. There's a second range coming in here for Sundjata, but here's the deal. Once you have galleys running around over here, and there is narrow choke points, so that means that the galleys can control the map very nicely over here in the middle. You see that a couple of galleys here prevent the movement of archers, and the thing is that it takes forever for those archers to walk from here all the way around to here. This is why I feel like you have to fight the water in the middle. Now obviously, by the time the players see these games, they have already played their sets with the exception of the grand finals, and that means that everybody came in here with a certain preset strategy that he has imagined, maybe practiced with a practice partner, but players won't have time to, you know, steal the opponents or steal others' build orders for this one, or steal others' game plan. It looks like we will have another towering attempt here from Harald, and he's playing this one better and better, to be honest. He's not really playing this one perfect because he got pretty much eaten by Scout, but his game plan is actually a little bit better. I like the galley play a lot more, and it looks like this outpost will actually be able to spot the archers coming here, and as I said, just 1 or 2 galleys cleans this up really nicely, as there will be a couple of archers sneaking through as well. So now it is only a 6 villagers difference, and soon that difference could shrink as well. The tower here is probably gonna go up for both players, although it looks like Harald is not garrisoning, so he's not gonna actually kill a lot of villagers from the opponent with that tower just yet. Nice moves from Sundjata to take this land before he would actually encounter a galley, but there is already skirmishers now for Harald, though you have to add that now Sundjata is the one that is actually taking over in terms of food villager count, and really on such a map an early castle age could be a huge thing, because a stable for knights could be insanely strong. It looks like the eco for Harald is actually really unbalanced. You see that he's 11 on gold, has 700 gold in the bank right now, wants to buy himself up to castle age over here. There's finally a dog coming in for Sundjata though. So, the more I'm looking at Harald, I am starting to feel that it could be Tato. Tato would actually do boar weakening with a TC, and I feel like based on what we have seen from Tato recently, he isn't playing crystal clean, but he would love such maps. Tato is an inventor of new strategies. He loves to kind of shape the meta to his own way as he picks off 2 villagers, and I definitely can imagine Tato selecting a map like Mudflow for himself, and he's just generally a good player. He has some sloppy moments, like we have seen in recent tournaments, but still generally performing well. So I'm tempted to think about Harald being potentially Tato, as he clicks up to castle age a little sooner than his opponent, but not by a massive margin. Still, he lost quite a lot of galleys, but applied a lot of pressure to Sundjata, to a point where he's pretty much able to equalize the ecos. Like, still there is a 4 villagers lead, but part of that comes from Chinese, so I feel like now 8 villagers killed by Sundjata, 7 by Harald is actually a pretty decent situation. But there come the archers, and some of the villagers will just take the wrong path here and will eventually be destroyed. So there is quite a lot of archers on the field for Sundjata, and that would allow an early crossbowman play from our Chinese player over here. Meanwhile, this fire galley will most likely get picked off, as the repair villager was coming in to help out, but the galley goes down, so will the fire galley, I believe. It looks like Harald will just go double dock and just go for galley play, and it looks like we're gonna have some demos, and that's something that you always have to account for. Indeed, there is the full demo play. There is the full demo play, and that's something that you have to account for in a map like this, because basically the demos, there's ambulance in front of my window, so that's why you're hearing background noises, in case you're hearing it. I don't know if you have heard, but there was like an ambulance passing by, so I'll stop for a moment. But anyways, what I want to point out is that on such hybrid amphibious maps, demo ships can always be extremely devastating. Just one hit on a wood line like this, and they sink like 10 villagers. Now, this outpost will actually be able to spot this army, I believe, coming in. The timing is actually pretty nice from Sundjata, just reaching castle age. Will actually go for crossbow botkin, I believe, over here. Queued up, I think he queued up the upgrades, but he hasn't gotten there yet. Indeed, there is crossbowman. But this outpost actually warns his opponent that, hey, there's actually stuff coming my way. It's going to be elite skirms and the defensive tower coming in. But even more importantly, I think that he's just waiting for one good opportunity to sink like 20 villagers with demos. The more I'm looking at Harald, the more I'm feeling it's Tato. Crossbows now will camp beneath the tower and kill quite a lot of villagers. Now, once again, it's a 16-7 villager KD, so Harald's demo play has to work out here, otherwise he once again is going to fall behind in eco. But he was waiting for free demos, and free demos could cause a lot of destruction. So It is going to be 3 TCs for our blue player. We'll have knights coming in as well, whereas for Harald, it is going to be just a 1 TC play. I feel like the biggest problem for Harald is that he isn't really able to protect the outside of his eco. Like, these knights are just running past, the crossbows are running past, and Harald just keeps losing villagers back at home. However, as I said, on such a bog terrain, that's exactly what you're looking for. Boom goes the villager count, and boom goes the villager count. And suddenly, all these villager kills on the outside don't really matter that much anymore for Sundjata, because he lost a lot of villagers in the middle as well. Still, there is a 7 villagers lead for him, because he's on multiple TCs. And I feel like that's the end of the story, unless there's a demo coming in to sing those crossbows, because as good as Harald had with the demos, I feel like he's just unable to keep his own eco alive, and he will just ultimately get outboomed. Like, you see that he's attacking into War Galley, but these crossbows and knights will just camp on the outside, and now it's a 16 villagers lead. Harald is losing villagers left and right, basically. Like, a couple of villagers were killed over here, once again 24 to 15. And the thing is that the resource retention is much better for those crossbows. Yeah, the demos look fancy when they actually kill the villagers, but they actually die as well after killing the villagers. So you trade like a demo ship's price to 4 or 5 villagers, whereas Sundjata is just running around with crossbows, killing villagers left and right, and he's still able to keep that army alive. So the value / investment is actually much better for Sundjata over here. So we're gonna have a couple of war galleys that could still harass the shoreline. That's a nice move from Harald. A little bit sloppy, if you ask me, from Sundjata to build a mill over there, because he probably suspected that his opponent has more ships out there. Guard tower. Who would go for guard tower? Like, my first name that I could actually name would be Max, but he wouldn't actually do that because he's not in the main event of Hidden Cup. Other than that, maybe Vilas. Guard tower is definitely an interesting tech here. It's not a bad idea. In fact, it's actually a fairly decent idea overall. It's a little surprising. A couple of cav archers coming in here. Oh my goodness. Sundjata takes this one. I have some Harald having some Taro vibes. It's a weak Taro vibe, but I feel like Taro would be one of the players that would select such a map. One of the players that would actually have somewhat similar game plan to this one. And also, I feel like he's definitely one of those players that were having a rough time in recent tournaments, and that's exactly what we would see. I mean, he was down to 29 villagers against 59, so... Oops, that's the wrong scene. So with that, Harald is actually going to lose his Japanese. We never really figured out why Japanese was a good pick here for him, because he didn't make fishing ships. Yeah, cheaper drop-off buildings like lumber camps and mills, but does that matter that much? I'm not 100% sure. Chinese felt like a much more natural pick here for Sundjata. And that means that we're actually going to the second home map of Harald, which is going to be Bypass. The first time we're actually going to see Bypass in the main event of Hidden Cup. So we will jump into the next one. We have an interesting civilization setup for us. We will have a Portuguese versus Malay matchup. Malay is not unconventional on such semi-closed maps as we go into Bypass. Right side is going to be Sundjata in blue as Malay. Left side is Harald in yellow Portuguese. Portuguese is much more unconventional. I'm not really sure what he wants to do with this civilization over here. So Bypass is just like Hideout, as you see over here. There is a central forest. The 2 players are palisade walled in there. But there is actually a bypass in between the 2 players. This is actually running sand. You can build on it, but there is still enough tiles to build something closer to the opponent's gates. There's also a lot of berries and hunt on the outside, which makes me wonder if playing Mongols here is a reasonable decision. Other than that, the map actually plays out somewhat similar to Hideout. But first, we'll take a look at the Dark Age builds of these players. Normally, I would probably fast forward through this, but I feel like it's actually going to be a little bit beneficiary for us to have this extra information, to see the Dark Age build orders for players, to evaluate who they are. So with that, we're gonna have a deer push. Well, it's ostrich push, but it technically classifies a deer push coming in from both players, I believe. Indeed, both of them will keep the gate open with a sheeperino. And it also seems Harald is going to stop pushing after one because he's sending away the sheep from this gate. Makes me wonder what exactly he has on his mind after this. Now, one of the things that you could actually gamble on is that oftentimes your opponent's rhino actually spawns close to the walls. And you could try sending a voyager here and trying to lame it. I don't think it's a reasonable idea, but it definitely is something that you can think about. Right now, 4 on wood for Harald, as we're gonna have the first board coming in here for him. And once again, he's weakening that with the TC. I just want to showcase something in this Dark Age build in a moment. You see that the next Voyager was added to the board here, and now this Voyager is moving in here to reinforce these walls. But this Voyager that's building the houses, I believe, will go on the berries later. Whereas the Voyager that comes out to take the board is not going to be the housing Voyager. For build order that Dogao uses, he would be using, like if this was Dogao, what he would do is make 2 houses with a Voyager somewhere around over here and then take this board with that. That's the Dogao way of playing this. Now, Dogao doesn't use TC to weaken boards either, so we can already cross out Dogao by far, but I just pointed out the difference between the build orders of these players, and this is why I'm fairly certain I will be able to identify Dogao, because of how he's actually playing Dark Age. I like this play. I think when I actually made the map video, I said that this is probably the way that you play this one. So you just reinforce the wall in the middle with houses, and then just play that very, very similar to Hideout. I don't think that the Towers play is legitimate, although you have to add the fact that Sundjata's stone is actually pretty close to these walls in the middle. So he needs to be careful. But considering that Harald is walling himself up in the middle, I feel like he just wants to play this one as a standard hideout. We are gonna have Harald luring in the second board just now. The timing is actually very, very nice. It's actually on point. And with that, we will have both boards in for both players. I think this is the time when we can actually add a bit of a juice. Considering now we have time controls in Capture Age, it looks like this fast forward isn't really doing much. So that won't work out that much. It might be for live games. I think this is also... I will just check this, but I think you can actually add... Indeed. You see what I did here? I'm just showcasing what Capture Age can do as well. I'm also experimenting with this one myself. This actually adds a timestamp to the game. So in case you are casting or you're just watching, you add a timestamp and you can go back with the replay tools. You, I think, can also go back like 30 seconds, advanced 30 seconds. So this is the time control stuff. It seems like it's actually not able to fast forward games like Rex, currently. Because you see that it is still the same speed. So if we want to do that, we have to go into the game and do it. So... game. I see, I'm starting to see what's happening. So now we can fast forward because the game is ahead of us. I see, so the time frames that the game is using and Capture Age using is actually different. This is a little bit confusing, but you can actually get used to this one. I apologize for testing this out right now. I'm also sort of messing around with this one. And I believe if I say go to live, indeed now we're watching at the same rate as we're watching in the game. So now we're at the game speed. Anyways, we are gonna have Harald coming in here with Voyagers on stone. Makes me wonder if it's Organ Guns play because it's a Market Blacksmith fast castle from him. And I feel like Sundjata is actually playing fast castle here as well with melee. Although these villagers being added to gold are a little late to my taste, so this wasn't really a clear, fast castle build. But other than that, I feel like this is still going to be a reasonable castle age time for him. I'm not sure if he's gonna beat his opponent into castle here, but he's definitely gonna have a reasonable castle age time. Now, one thing that I would like to add is that I feel like it's a little bit risky from Sundjata to do this fast castle without actually adding walls here. He could have added houses just to make sure that he's not gonna get pushed through the middle. And it seems like we're gonna have a villager coming in here for Harald. I wonder what this guy is up for. Well, it's a lady, but still. Wait a second. Maybe that lady... Hold on. Hold on for a moment. I wonder if this wanted to be a forward voyager from Harald to the outside, but he accidentally clicked to the inside of the opponent's base and the lady actually walked through the middle. Because, imagine this. You think that your opponent is here, I click, let's click over here. And you assume that your opponent isn't there, but if it's actually within the opponent's walls, then the lady is actually going to take this path and not this path. So that might have been the reason. I'm not sure what this lady was doing otherwise. With that, Harald is almost up to castle age, so is Sundjata. And we are going to have Organgans, that's not a question. The question is, where is that castle coming up? It's going to be probably... Where is that castle going up? Because the villagers from stone were actually sent to food. So it's gonna be the berry villagers dropping the castle, maybe just over here in the middle, and push through the middle with Organgans. That could be an idea. We'll see what Sundjata reacts to that one, because that could be a pretty devastating push. Coming in the middle, we'll go for Loom right now. No production buildings whatsoever for him though, but he's gonna have these walls reinforced, and he could just defend the siege workshop. And the alternative option is indeed town center on the stone mine over here, a third TC as well. It looks like we're just gonna have a full boom play from Sundjata in this one. This is a bit uncharacteristic though of Vivi, and this is what I was thinking about, that it could still be Vivi, but the more I'm looking at it, it could be Winchester, to be honest. It could be unconventional from Winch, but it's not impossible that Winchester was thinking about landing on islands. And Malay would definitely be a pick that Winchester would actually like in here. But I feel like Winchester would have gone for a little bit more innovative plays, so to say. So it's still unlikely. You also have to remember that Harald actually went for Gods as his last pick. It might just be, you know, a fake Civ pick to make it harder for people to guess who he is. And might just not use Gods at all. But Gods is a very, very Winchester-like Civ pick. I'm still having Taro feelings, but I'm not sure about Sundjata anymore. So it's free TC play right now. Eco upgrades are in, so this is definitely not Nikov. And he's gonna have to react to the Organgans with a monastery. A Mangonel, like a Siege Workshop Mangonel play also works out nicely. And the thing is that if Sundjata is allowed to gather stone, what's gonna happen is that he will just make a defensive castle and stall this push out. I feel like these early castle pushes aren't reasonable. Unless you can really catch your opponent off guard. Because Sundjata or any other player can just make a defensive castle in the middle, and that will completely close the window for any potential imp or castle age pushes. Now, here's the deal. Do you know what this is? This is a 1 TC fast imp here by Harald, and once again my Taro vibes are starting to increase. Because Taro would definitely be someone that engineers a strategy like this. This is not really a standard build here. This feels fairly fresh and unique, and would explain a lot, because cheaper gold cost on those units. And look at this. That's gonna be an imp from Harald. Nice idea. Very, very nice idea. That also explains why he actually sent his stone voyagers to farms immediately, because he wanted to gather some extra food so he can click up to imp. And it's going to be like an Organgan trap push. He knows exactly that his opponent is probably going to be able to make a castle to defend himself in the middle. So what he actually wants to play for is adding a couple of traps in there to just take down buildings. Now, here's the deal. There's already double monasteries going for Sanctity Monks. and the monks will just outrange the organ guns. The organ guns can't even actually engage the monks because of the extra range that the monks have right now. Also nice defensive towers from Sundjata. Sundjata has a massive eco lead right now, so this is definitely a super aggressive, all-in-esque play from Harald. Sundjata sees the score as another guard tower play comes in here. I think that guard towers were also frequently used by Doubt and Taro last Hidden Cup, and that's why I thought that they were max and less. So guard tower is definitely something that is not far away from those players either, but I don't think that either of those would have gone for landing. Doubt also wouldn't have lured the boar with the TC. Still, the eco is just massively in the favor of Sundjata right now. And 2 guard towers plus a couple of monks are good enough to keep the organ guns out here. The real question is, what is Sundjata going to do when the trebs arrive? But I feel like one of the beautiful things about melee is that they can react to anything very fast. So when they see that the opponent is up to Imperial, they can just start idling their TCs for a moment, and because they get to Imperial so fast, they can just kind of catch up really fast to the opponent. Their reaction to the opponent beating them to Imp is really fast out there. Botkin is also in for those towers, and I think now the tower is able to range those organ guns, indeed. So Harald, massive market usage over here. And I would like to add one more thing now that I think about that. Oh, Fatorias! This gotta be Taro. This gotta be Taro. There is no other person on this planet that would actually engineer strategies like this, and I am actually getting like 90% sure this is Taro. Do you know why? I'm starting to realize the Saracen ban. I was scratching my head on the Saracens ban, and if you think about it, the players know more than what we do. They know more about the maps, they know more about the server that they play on. They know about the time frame they play in. So for example, if you start playing at 19 GMT, it's almost guaranteed it's not ACCM, for example, because ACCM would play earlier. So they have a little bit more information to work with. And if you suspect you're up against Tato, for whatever reason, you ban Saracens, because Tato by far is the best player out there with Saracens. This is a genius game plan from him. This is definitely not something that a player like Hera or Leary would pull off. Also, I think they would also play generally better. But even players like ACCM, Nikov, I don't think they would actually pull off strategies like this. What we are seeing over here is the big brain, innovative, creative type of a play that is something that is very reminiscent of Tato. I am like 85% sure that this is Tato that we are seeing here for Harald. And he's gonna have the Fatorias working for him. Is that able to compensate for the Voyager's deficit? Probably not, but you're actually starting to destroy buildings really fast over here. Imperial Age is coming in for Sundjata on this TC though. I feel like if Harald starts pushing up with the trebs, and that's something that I could criticize with this build for Harald, he needs more trebs. He needs to capitalize on this Imp, he needs a second treb. Honestly, he could have stopped this Imperial if he had 2 trebs and he actually starts targeting TCs, and I think that's the play here. You know that your opponent's only chance is to catch up with you to Imperial, so you are trying to make sure that you can actually stop your opponent or delay him to Imperial. If Sundjata gets to Imp, I feel like Arbalest Bombard Cannon will just clap this one, and since Harald is pushing through the middle, we're just gonna have Sundjata expanding to the sides, and he could actually take a lot of hunt here, which will boost his food eco as well. There's the defensive castle for what will be just trebs at the end. In Imperial, he can actually go for the additional monk upgrades as well. More layers of walls coming in here, and I feel like this push is slowly stalling out for Harald. I like the Faitoria play. It's an eco that you can't raid, but it's 5 organ guns only. If Sundjata gets into Imperial here, indeed gets Illumination block printing immediately, he can just take down those organ guns with conversions, or alternative is that he can just start pushing Arbalest and Bombard Cannon on the outside, and you don't really have the army right now for Harald to stop that. The creativity of this build actually impresses me, because the idea is amazing for Harald, but I feel like his push was a little too slow, and also against Melee this is hard to pull off, because Melee is... like, Melee already have a massive eco lead compared to you, just based on a fast castle play. I don't think that this was a fast imp from Harald. I think it was something like 27 villagers up. This wasn't actually planned. Right, it might have been planned to be relatively fast Imperial, as we have an on or trap cut coming in here. Now there is an opening, I believe, or there soon will be. So you see that there is an Arblast play coming in now for Harald. Still, 50 villagers is not something that you can compensate for, I think, with 5 Fetorias. Fetorias are nice, but they don't have an insane gather rate. They're very, very good when the map starts running out of resources. Not so great when there's actual resources on the field and villagers can gather from that. And they also take a lot more population space than what is ideal. That's the other thing. So, yeah, Fetorias are nice. Especially the Stone Trickle can be very, very helpful, because that allows you to drop some additional castles without even needing to mine stones. So the passive Stone Trickle is always nice with Fetorias. But look at this, Organ Guns getting converted over here one by one as Harald is trying to cut into the opponent's base. But you see that soon Sundjata is going to start pushing the sides. Harald knows about this forward position now thanks to that outpost. But unless he's able to start stomping his opponent here really hard, I think this is not gonna work out. And I feel like if this wasn't against Malay, this would work way better. Because Malay, as I said, they're just able to react to things really, really fast. They see that the opponent is Imperial, they can think about clicking up to Imperial themselves, and when they do that, they reach Imperial really fast, so their reactions are much, much faster to this one. And you see that like the monks are actually converting Arbalest because there isn't really a huge amount of Arbs on the field. This is the first time that Harald is actually able to push the opponent's eco, but is it even a push? There is Bombard Cannons, monks defending, defensive castle, and it's 107 villagers against 45. Obviously there is a couple of Fetorias here, but I don't think that that matters that much. Or the thing is that even if it matters, the population is a problem. The Fetorias aren't actually population efficient, which means that sure, you have the Fetorias getting resources for you, but once your opponent is able to get numbers out on the field, and even just a couple of Karambit warriors could be pretty helpful here, then that's not gonna work out well for Harald. So I think once Sundjata actually starts making army, this is going to be a completely different scenario. Obviously, microing those bombard cannons will be tough against the Portuguese bombard cannons that could potentially have the arquebus upgrade. But there is a castle coming up here on this side from Sundjata on range. For Arbalest by Harald is actually capable of denying this one for the time being, but there is Arbalest and Tumbling for Sundjata. And as I said, population efficiency is the name of the game. Sundjata sends more villagers to clean this up. And there's more ARPs coming in the middle, so I have to say that I'm very, very impressed with this build here from Harald. Whatever the result is going to be, I think he's getting the most out of these Fetorias. A couple of scouts were made as well to try and deny this castle, but that's not gonna happen. And as I said, I feel like the problem for Harald is going to be population efficiency. He won't be able to field 50 ARBs on the field because his population space is mostly taken up by Fetorias. Whereas his opponent is just gonna be able to get like, I don't know, 30, 40 Arbalasts out on the field without any problems. And I feel like Harald will just get overrun by superior numbers of units. There's already the trap coming in here, and with that trap you can actually start trapping down the Fetorias here as well. As much as it is true that Fetorias cannot be raided, it is also true that while villagers cannot really be killed by traps, traps are able to kill the Feitoria-based deco very, very heavily. And it looks like Sundjata knows that he's up against mostly ARPs, so he's actually going to tech into Elite Skirm as well. Gets crop rotation for himself. I don't really know who Sundjata could be. I had some VV vibes, but those are somewhat gone, and I am more leaning towards Winchester a little bit, or it could also be a player like ACCM. It's hard to say right now. It's really hard to say who Sundjata could be, but I feel like based on what we're seeing in this game and the fact that, as I said, the only thing that's keeping Harald in this game is Fetorias, but soon those will be trapped down. And as I said, he's got 0 map control. I feel like we will be able to see more from Sundjata and in the next round, because Harald, I mean, as I said, the Fetorias are nice, but not when you have like 30 villagers working for you. They won't compensate for 100 villagers, that's 100% guaranteed. And this map has a lot of extra resources like food, stone, gold. That means that it doesn't really matter that Praetorias generate your resources without, you know, needing to gather them with villagers, because at the end of the day, what you have to consider is that Sundjata is able to just get all the resources he needs from the sides here with villagers, and it's not like those Praetorias are actually giving any advantage to Harald right now, especially not when the villager count is that big of a difference. So it's like almost 80 villagers lead right now for Sundjata, and the trap goes down. Those bombard cannons will always be tricky to deal with, but you also have to keep in mind there's already block printing monks with redemption for Sundjata. He saves the castle in the middle for the time being. Harald still using the market very, very heavily, something that's inevitable when you're playing with Praetorias. And Harald is holding this one really, really nicely. I feel like all that Sundjata needs to do is Arbalest Bombard Cannon, or even Skirmisher Bombard Cannon could work out. We could even see Melee Light Cav, which is an absolute junk, but at this point, I mean, it would be great for sniping down Bombard Cannons, that's for sure. But you need something as the Bombard Cannons if you're Sundjata, as we'll have traps coming out on basically every front line. There's a trap out here for Sundjata as well. Harald will be on 6 Praetorias now. Is it 6? Yeah, it's 6 Praetorias. As, look at this. Sundjata is even towering this wood line over here to make sure that his opponent has a tougher time accessing wood. Same thing could happen on the other side, and now this castle is under siege by 3 traps. You still have to be careful, because there's a bombard cannon out there, but the monk is already trying to get a conversion in, and there is the bombard cannon getting converted, and that castle should go down. It looks like we'll have a switch back into cavalry from Harald, so he wants to tech into cavalry, or at least he was probably thinking about that because he was getting defense upgrade for knights, but that didn't really work out. Knights pop out here, and another bombard cannon is out as well, but I feel like considering that those knights only have +2 defense, there's a castle, there's guard tower, there's arbalests here, I don't feel like these knights will accomplish much. And if you look at the right side, obviously there's a lot of eco in Praetorias for Harald, but if you consider the fact that he's having his left side completely collapsed, and now those bombard cannons and traps will set up and take down the Praetorias. Nice push in the middle, by the way, from Harald. So he's got a couple of bombard cannons out, but he loses one because he wasn't paying attention. The other one could be converted by a monk or picked off by the other bombard cannon. And indeed, the conversion is going to occur over there. And, I mean, as I said, the most of Harald's eco is in Praetorias. But still, there is some villagers that are gathering, and those are extremely important villagers, as the Praetorias are now under fire over here. Another bombard cannon gets converted, and for now they will focus down. This converted bombard cannon traps are still alive, and the first Praetoria goes down. Now, replacing Praetoria is actually possible for a while until you actually have a decent trickle of stone, because Praetorias cost stone. That's something that you always have to keep in mind, that replacing Praetorias is as possible as long as you have a trickle of stone, like a reasonable trickle. But considering that there is only 3 villagers on gold from Harald, that gold trickle will also be needed to replenish the Praetorias. And look at this, Sundjata isn't really destroying him here, so the defense is actually pretty nice from Harald. But I feel like Karambit warriors will actually be a reasonable unit here, because the Arbalest of the Portuguese will do a lot of overkill damage to them. They're cheap, they can just dive in and snipe bombard cannons, and even Keep is coming in here for Sundjata. Who would do such a thing? I don't think it's Vivi anymore. Who would be playing with Keeps here? And more importantly, who would be playing with Celts on islands? That's the more surprising thing here. I don't think it's MBL, although it's never impossible that it's MBL. I'll have to take a look at the home map selections for Sundjata for that. But I mean, now this feels super omega over, because soon there is going to be nowhere to go for Harald. He's got 16 army on the field against 47, and even though the population looks great, if you actually look into like the deeper picture, you will see that it's basically all Praetorias, and they're going down really, really fast, and Karambit warriors will hit this part of the map really fast, and Karambits are fast. They are actually pretty decent at, you know, just killing villagers over here, moving around. Arbalest won't really be great against Karambits either, and you see that the push now, it's coming from all directions. 4,000 score lead for Sundjata, and we will have Harald tapping out over here. It's really hard to say who has the edge here. As you see, all the upgrades coming in here in the new Capture Age overlay. Resources were way better for Sundjata, but I think that was pretty obvious. I think that this is the key, that Malay are able to react so fast to the Imperial Age of the opponent. It was still a 4 minutes difference, but it could have been 8 or 9 minutes difference with save that other than Malay overall. So with that, Sundjata gets into the next round, so we'll actually have a more time to figure out who he is. But for now, based on all of this, based on the fact that we have islands and bypass, especially bypass, there was a special strategy that was very Tato-esque. I have a feeling that Harald was Tato. I don't have 100% confirmation, but even the Saracens ban against him, you wouldn't really ban Saracens normally. I have a feeling that Harald is Taro. Or at least, Sundjata feels that it was Taro. And he probably felt it even before the series. The Gothic pick is interesting here. Could have been Winchester, but I feel like this strategy, the overall way that it was played, Arabia, good overall play, but nothing exceptional. Islands was an interesting decision. But Mudflow was actually played in a fairly creative way, so he went for the hybrid map aspect of that. And most importantly, as I said, this map, I feel like this is a strategy that very few people would actually experiment with strategies this much, because this took a lot of effort to figure a strategy out like this. I am fairly certain. And you see that Harald actually picked Portuguese really early. So this was part of the game plan for the whole time. I feel like this is something that Taro would do so much. Anyways, with that, this is the end of the third series of Hidden Cup 4 main event. Sundjata winning against Harald, and we will see Sundjata in the next round.